The grand palace of Zarnthia stretched high into the alien sky, a glittering marvel of crystal spires and floating walkways. Its walls glimmered with shifting colors, responding to the emotions of those within. For centuries, the Zarnthian Empire had ruled the surrounding star systems with unmatched power, and its Empress, Vyra, was known for her beauty, intelligence, and unyielding authority. Every citizen, from the lowest clerk to the highest commander, knew her gaze could both inspire and terrify. Yet today, the palace hummed with a different energy of curiosity and anticipation. The news had spread quickly. The Empress was about to marry a human. Not a noble, not a high-ranking diplomat, but a human from Earth, a species considered primitive by most Zarnthians. The humans were clever, yes, and their technology had begun to impress the Empire. But they were still seen as simple beings, lacking the refinement and elegance of Zarnthian life. The human's name was Jonathan Hale. He had been sent as an ambassador from Earth, a representative of humanity's fledgling interstellar coalition. He was tall by human standards, lean but strong, with dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. To the Zarnthians, he appeared ordinary, perhaps even fragile. But Vyra had chosen him not for strength, nor for wealth, but for intelligence, cunning, and character. At least, that was what her advisors believed. Vyra sat in her throne room, watching as her courtiers whispered among themselves. Her golden armor glinted in the light, and her violet eyes scanned the hall with practiced precision. "Bring him in," she commanded softly, her voice carrying the calm authority of a ruler who had never known failure. 2 guards escorted Jonathan through the hall. He moved carefully, observing the beauty and strangeness of the palace. The walls shimmered like liquid glass, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and flowers. An alien combination he found both unsettling and fascinating. He bowed before the Empress, lowering his head respectfully. "Jonathan Hale," Vyra said, her tone smooth but not unkind. "You stand in the court of the Empress of Zarnthia. You are aware of the significance of this union." "I am," he replied calmly. His voice was steady, confident, yet polite. "I understand that this marriage is more than a personal choice. It is a bond between 2 civilizations." The courtiers snickered quietly behind their hands. A human speaking with such composure in the presence of the Empress was unexpected. Some thought he might crumble under the weight of the palace's grandeur. Others thought he would be a mere ornament in the court, a simple figure for ceremonial purposes. Vyra studied him carefully. There was something unusual about him, though she could not yet define it. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability intrigued her. "Very well," she said finally. "You will live in the palace. You will learn our ways, our customs, and our laws. You will be judged not by your words, but by your actions." Jonathan nodded. "I will do my best to honor the trust placed in me." The days that followed were filled with lessons, introductions, and endless formalities. Jonathan learned to move in the elaborate Zarnthian bow, a graceful gesture that involved a precise tilt of the head and a flow of the arms. He learned their customs at meals, which included tasting foods that changed flavor depending on one's mood. He listened as scholars explained the complexities of Zarnthian law, and he observed the court's politics with keen attention. Vyra watched him closely during these lessons. Many humans would struggle, would falter, or would appear overwhelmed. But Jonathan adapted quickly. He asked questions that revealed insight, noticed details others overlooked, and sometimes even corrected minor misunderstandings, always with respect, never with arrogance. Her advisors grew restless. "Empress," one whispered, "he is a human. He cannot possibly match our expectations. Why do you waste time with him?" Vyra's eyes narrowed. "Because there is more to him than you understand," she replied softly. "I have seen it in his eyes. There is a spark, a determination, and a mind that thinks beyond appearances." Jonathan's evenings were spent walking the palace gardens. The gardens floated above the city on platforms of translucent crystal, filled with strange alien plants that glowed faintly in the twilight. He often found himself alone, considering the enormity of what he had undertaken. Marrying an alien empress was not only a personal challenge, it was a responsibility to his entire species. Humans had always been underestimated, yet he believed firmly in their potential. One night, while gazing at the stars through the palace's transparent ceiling, Vira appeared beside him. "You seem to find the gardens peaceful," she observed, her voice softer than usual. Jonathan smiled faintly. "They are beautiful and quiet, unlike the palace, which is alive in 1,000 ways. It watches and listens." Vira's eyes flickered with amusement. "You notice much. I have to," he replied simply. "I must understand this place and everyone in it if I am to honor this union properly." She studied him, trying to discern if his confidence was genuine or simply arrogance. Humans were mysterious creatures, unpredictable in ways even the most intelligent Zarnthian could not always anticipate. She had expected him to be cautious, timid, perhaps even fearful. Yet here he was, calm and collected, learning faster than most Zarnthians would expect. Speaking with respect, but also with quiet authority. "Do you not fear this position?" she asked, her violet eyes sharp. Jonathan shook his head. "Fear is not productive. I am aware of the challenges. I am aware of the expectations. But I am also aware of what humans can achieve when we are given the chance." Vira's lips curved in the faintest smile. No human had ever spoken to her this way before. Her advisors had warned her that humans were weak, ill-prepared for power. But Jonathan was already proving them wrong. The first official banquet was held in honor of the Union. Zarnthian nobles filled the hall, their shimmering garments reflecting the ambient light. A human's presence in this setting would normally be seen as a novelty. But Jonathan carried himself with dignity. He spoke to the nobles with courtesy, listened attentively, and even engaged in subtle displays of wit that made the Empress raise an eyebrow. In surprise. Throughout the evening, he navigated the complex web of alliances and rivalries with remarkable skill. He did not boast, nor did he yield. He simply acted with intelligence, observing, learning, and applying his knowledge in ways that impressed even the most skeptical courtiers. By the end of the night, a quiet murmur spread among the nobles. Some were baffled, some were impressed. Few had expected a human to command attention without demanding it. Vira, however, watched him with a new awareness. This was no ordinary human. There was something deeper, something that could not be measured by strength or wealth. It was a strength of mind, of spirit, and perhaps even of character. Days turned into weeks. Jonathan continued to prove himself in small ways, mediating disputes between factions of the court, suggesting solutions to logistical problems in the palace, and offering perspectives that even seasoned Zarnthian officials had overlooked. Each success, each demonstration of skill, made Vira question what she thought she knew about humans and about Jonathan himself. One afternoon, as they walked along a floating terrace above the city, Vira spoke quietly. "I admit, I underestimated you at first," she said, her voice unusually candid. "I expected a human to be limited, fragile, perhaps easily overwhelmed. You are none of these things." Jonathan looked at her, expression calm. Yet there was a glint of determination in his eyes. "I did not wish to impress," he said simply. "I wish only to fulfill my duty and to show that humans, when given the chance, can rise to challenges that seem impossible." Vira's gaze lingered on him, her mind turning over the implications. If humans could accomplish so much in a few weeks, what might they achieve in the wider galaxy? And if Jonathan's true strength had not yet been revealed, what else lay hidden beneath his calm exterior? The Empress did not answer immediately. Instead, she walked beside him in silence, considering the potential of a species she had long underestimated and the extraordinary human who had entered her life with quiet confidence, ready to change the course of the Empire forever. And somewhere deep inside, Vira felt the first stirrings of awe, recognition that this union might not only be historic, but also revolutionary. The following weeks in the palace were unlike anything Jonathan Hale had experienced. Life in Zarnthia was a constant lesson in adaptation. Every day brought new protocols, new rituals, and new challenges that demanded attention. For most humans, such complexity would have been overwhelming. But Jonathan approached each task with calm precision, learning faster than even Vira expected. The Empress observed him closely, She had watched the subtle changes in his behavior, how he noted patterns in the palace's systems, how he read the moods of the court, and how he managed to stay composed even when faced with confusion or unexpected obstacles. Vira had thought herself skilled in reading others, yet Jonathan seemed to anticipate problems before they even arose. The first test of his abilities came in an unusual form. The Imperial Council organized a formal challenge to evaluate his comprehension of Zaranthian culture and intelligence. The council chamber, a massive circular hall, was lined with crystalline pillars that amplified sound and light. Vira sat in her high seat, watching silently as Jonathan entered the chamber. Around him stood the Zaranthian officials, each eager to see the human stumble. "Jonathan Hale," began the chief advisor, a tall Zaranthian named Krellis. "You have been in our palace for a month. Now, you will demonstrate your understanding of our laws, our customs, and our reasoning. Failure will reflect on your suitability as the Empress's consort." Jonathan nodded, his expression calm. "I understand," he said. The challenges were not physical. They were puzzles of logic, morality, and diplomacy. Krellis presented him with a scenario. To distant planets under Zaranthian rule were in conflict over water resources. One planet had abundant energy but little water. The other had water but limited energy. Jonathan had to propose a solution that would satisfy both planets without violating Zaranthian law or provoking unrest. Most humans would have panicked at the complexity. But Jonathan thought carefully, considering the needs of both sides. He suggested a trade agreement using a system of energy credits and water quotas, combined with a monitoring council to ensure compliance. His solution was fair, efficient, and innovative, something the council had not anticipated. The officials murmured in surprise. Vira allowed herself a small smile. This was exactly what she had sensed in him, a mind capable of seeing connections others missed. But the council was not satisfied with just one demonstration. Next came a test of observation. Jonathan was shown a sequence of images and asked to detect subtle anomalies. These images included moving landscapes, abstract patterns, and alien symbols. The Zaranthians prided themselves on their perception, often claiming humans could not match their ability to notice fine details. Jonathan's eyes scanned each image carefully. When asked about the anomalies, he identified each one correctly, sometimes even noting details the Zaranthians had missed. Whispers spread across the chamber. Could this human truly be as clever as the Empress had suggested? Finally, the challenge shifted to diplomacy. Jonathan had to mediate a disagreement between two nobles over trade routes through the floating markets of the capital. The dispute was tense, with emotions running high. Jonathan listened patiently, asking questions to clarify each noble's position. Then, calmly, he proposed a compromise that allowed both parties to maintain profits while improving market safety. The nobles looked at each other in stunned silence. Never before had a human successfully mediated such a complex dispute in Zaranthia. The council members, who had doubted his abilities, could no longer ignore the evidence. Vira's eyes met Jonathan's. There was a quiet confidence in his gaze, not arrogance, but certainty. She realized that his strength was not only in intelligence, but also in judgment and character. He did not seek to dominate or impress. He sought solutions, fairness, and understanding. The test ended. But the palace's atmosphere had changed. Courtiers who had once laughed at the human now spoke with respect or, in some cases, with cautious suspicion. Jonathan's reputation was growing, quietly but steadily. Even the most skeptical members of the council began to wonder what other hidden talents he might possess. Outside the palace, the city of Zaranthia thrived. Floating platforms connected by transparent bridges formed a network of streets and plazas, all illuminated by the natural glow of the planet's twin suns. Jonathan often took walks through these streets, observing life among the Zaranthians. He noted how they moved, how they spoke, and how they treated one another. Every observation was a lesson, every conversation a clue. One afternoon, as he wandered through the central market, a young Zaranthian approached him nervously. "Sir, the council requests your presence," the youth stammered. "There is a situation," Jonathan followed him to the palace without hesitation. When he arrived, he found a minor rebellion had erupted in one of the lower districts. A group of workers had refused to follow new safety protocols, threatening to halt production of vital resources. The council was unsure how to respond, debating harsh punishment versus negotiation. Jonathan stepped forward. "Punishment will only create resentment," he said quietly. "We need a solution that addresses their concerns while maintaining safety. I propose a compromise: temporary adjustments to protocols combined with education and incentives. Once they understand the reasons behind the rules, compliance will increase willingly." The officials listened, some skeptical. But when they implemented his suggestion, the rebellion ended within hours, peacefully and efficiently. Vira, observing from her balcony, felt a sense of amazement she had not experienced before. Humans, she realized, were not just clever, they could be practical, decisive, and courageous in ways that exceeded expectation. Despite his successes, Jonathan remained humble. He did not boast of his accomplishments. He did not seek admiration. Instead, he focused on understanding the Zaranthians, building trust, and learning their ways. Vira found this humility intriguing. Most of her subjects sought recognition, power, or advantage. Jonathan sought only understanding and action. As the days passed, Vira began to test him herself, not through formal challenges, but through observation. She asked subtle questions, posed ethical dilemmas, and created situations where patience and judgment were required. Each time, Jonathan responded with clarity and integrity. One evening, she joined him in the palace's floating garden. The alien plants glowed softly in the twilight, their colors shifting with the wind. "Jonathan," she began, her voice thoughtful, "you continue to surprise me. I have watched humans for years and believed I understood them. Yet you are different. I do not know if it is your training, your mind, or something innate, but you adapt in ways few could." Jonathan smiled faintly. "I am not trying to surprise you," he replied. "I am trying to understand, to learn, and to do what is right. I believe humans are capable of much more than others give us credit for. Perhaps that is why I seem different." Vira's violet eyes studied him carefully. There was a quiet strength in him, a determination that went beyond intellect. It was in the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he considered consequences before acting. She felt a mix of admiration and caution. If humans were capable of this much in controlled circumstances, what might they do in the wider galaxy, unrestrained? That night, Vira found herself restless. She wandered the halls of the palace, thinking about Jonathan, about humans, and about the future. The Zaranthian Empire had long prided itself on superiority, on being the most advanced and powerful civilization in known space. Yet here was a human who challenged that notion not with weapons or force, but with intelligence, judgment, and courage. It was a thought that unsettled her and thrilled her at the same time. Perhaps, she realized, alliances were more than political convenience. Perhaps they were a chance to discover new possibilities, new strengths, and new ways to see the universe. Meanwhile, Jonathan slept peacefully in his chambers, unaware of the magnitude of the impressions he had made. To him, he was simply doing what any human would do when faced with challenges: observe, understand, act. Yet with every passing day, his reputation grew, and the foundations of Zaranthian expectations began to shift, unseen by all. A small group of council members whispered in the shadows, questioning whether this human was truly as harmless as he seemed. They could not yet define the danger, but instinct told them that Jonathan's abilities might surpass even the most cautious projections. Vira, aware of these murmurs, did not speak. She had no fear, only curiosity. She had chosen Jonathan not for what he was, but for what he could become, and perhaps for what he already was. The first month of their union passed. The palace adjusted, the court adjusted, and the city watched with interest. But beyond all protocol and ceremony, one truth became clear: Jonathan Hale, the human who had entered Zaranthia as a simple ambassador, was proving that humans were not to be underestimated, and Vira, the Empress of the greatest empire in known space, began to wonder how far this human's true strength might reach if she was ready to witness it. Life in the palace of Zaranthia seemed to settle into a careful rhythm. After Jonathan Hale's initial successes, the court, though still cautious, had begun to respect the human ambassador-turned-consort. Vira watched him navigate the intricate politics of her empire with remarkable ease, her curiosity about human potential growing with every passing day. But beneath the surface of ceremonial banquets, diplomatic meetings, and palace lessons, trouble was stirring. A faction of the Zaranthian council had grown restless. Some of the oldest nobles saw the human as an interloper, an outsider who had no right to influence the affairs of the empire. They whispered in private chambers, questioning Vira's judgment and plotting ways to restore what they considered the proper order. It began subtly. Orders were delayed. Reports from distant provinces went unanswered. Subtle miscommunications created tension among key officials. Vira noticed the changes, her sharp mind piecing together a pattern. She approached Jonathan one evening as he examined a series of trade reports in his chamber. "Something is not right," she said, her voice low. "There are disruptions in multiple sectors. Delays, errors, even resistance among some commanders. It is unusual for the Empire to falter in such a coordinated way." Jonathan glanced at the reports. Frowning, it could be coincidence, but the timing and scale suggest something more deliberate. "We should investigate discreetly." Vira nodded. "You are correct. I trust your judgment. What do you propose?" Jonathan studied the data carefully, cross-referencing reports and communications. "We begin by identifying anomalies in the command chain," he said. "We look for patterns: who benefits from the disruptions, who has the motive, and who can coordinate actions across multiple regions. Once we know that, we can act strategically." Vira was impressed. The plan was methodical and precise, reflecting a mind that saw the Empire not as an intimidating machine, but as a living system of people, decisions, and connections. "Then let us proceed," she said. Within days, Jonathan and Vira uncovered evidence of a hidden plot. A small faction of nobles, led by a high-ranking counselor named Thalrix, had conspired to seize power. They believed humans were inferior and feared that Vira's reliance on Jonathan undermined traditional Zaranthian authority. The plot was dangerous, and if left unchecked, it could plunge the Empire into chaos. Vira's initial instinct was to confront the conspirators directly, but Jonathan advised caution. A direct confrontation may trigger violence before we understand the full scope of their plan. He said, "We need to protect the palace and neutralize the threat, without giving them the opportunity to rally support." Vira agreed, though a part of her longed to test her human consort in the heat of battle. She had already seen his intellect, but could he act decisively under real danger? The opportunity came sooner than she anticipated. One morning, the palace alarm rang. The Zaranthian defense system detected unauthorized movements near the northern gates. Guards rushed to intercept the intruders, but the attackers were not ordinary thieves or rebels. They were trained operatives, moving with precision and knowledge of the palace layout. It was clear that Thalrix's faction had decided to act. Jonathan moved swiftly. "Vira, we need to secure the Empress and the Central Command. I will coordinate the defense and contain the threat." Vira hesitated for only a moment. "I will stay with you. The palace is my responsibility, and I will not cower behind walls while my people are at risk." Together, they moved through the palace corridors. Jonathan had already anticipated the attackers' possible routes and directed the palace guards with remarkable precision. His calm demeanor gave confidence to the troops, who were initially hesitant to follow orders from a human. The first wave of intruders reached the main courtyard. Jonathan had set traps non-lethal, but effective, designed to slow the attackers, without harming them unnecessarily. Pressure plates triggered energy nets, while holographic illusions created confusion. The Zaranthian guards, under his guidance, took advantage of the chaos to capture key operatives. Vira watched in awe. Jonathan's planning was flawless, but what impressed her more was his adaptability. When an unexpected group of attackers bypassed one of the traps, Jonathan adjusted instantly, issuing new orders and personally intercepting the intruders before they could reach critical areas. "This human is remarkable," Vira thought, her mind racing. I knew he was intelligent, but his ability to anticipate and respond in real time, it surpasses any Zarnthian I have seen. By midday, the initial threat was contained, but Jonathan had identified that the core conspirators, including Thalrix, were still at large within the palace. Vira and Jonathan convened a private council to plan the next steps. "We need to isolate Thalrix without causing panic," Jonathan said. "He must not be allowed to communicate with his allies. We will use a combination of stealth, deception, and precision strikes to neutralize him and his closest supporters." Vira listened carefully. She had trained for combat, but she had never commanded such a complex operation with stakes so high. "Then we act," she said firmly. The night was quiet, but tension filled the palace. Jonathan moved like a shadow, guiding the loyal guards silently through hidden corridors. He had memorized every passage, every weak point in the palace's defenses. His knowledge of human tactics combined with his understanding of Zarnthian systems made him nearly unstoppable. Vira followed his lead, ready to intervene if necessary. They approached Thalrix's chambers, only to find the counselor waiting with a small contingent of armed supporters. A confrontation was inevitable. Jonathan stepped forward calmly. "Thalrix," he said, voice steady, "your plot is exposed. Surrender, and no unnecessary harm will come to you." Thalrix sneered. "A human dares to command me? You will regret this, Ambassador." In an instant, the room erupted into chaos. Guards clashed with the conspirators, and Jonathan moved with a speed and precision that stunned the Zarnthians. He disarmed opponents, anticipated attacks, and used the environment to his advantage, all without reckless aggression. His skill was not brute force, but mastery of strategy and movement. Vira was forced to adjust her expectations. This was not the same human who had entered her palace weeks ago. This was someone who combined intelligence, courage, and physical ability in a way that even seasoned warriors found formidable. Within minutes, the conspirators were subdued. Thalrix himself was captured, bound, and escorted from the palace. The threat was neutralized, but the Empress and her human consort had proven something far more important. Humans were capable of defending an empire, not just advising a dot as the adrenaline faded. Vira and Jonathan stood together in the main hall, overlooking the city. The twin suns had begun to set, casting long shadows across the crystalline platforms. "You have exceeded every expectation," Vira said quietly, her violet eyes fixed on him. "Not with brute strength, but with mind and action. I did not know humans could achieve this." Jonathan shook his head modestly. "I only acted as needed. Humans are capable of more than they are often given credit for. We adapt, we learn, we act when circumstances demand it." Vira smiled, a rare softness in her expression. "Then I must reconsider everything I thought I knew about your species and about you." For the first time, the Empress felt a genuine sense of awe. This human, who had seemed ordinary, had revealed a depth of strength she could not ignore. His presence in her life was no longer simply a political alliance, it was a revelation. The palace gradually returned to normal, but the memory of the attack lingered. Whispers circulated about the human who had defended the empire, a human who had not only survived but had outmatched even the most skilled Zarnthians. Jonathan, however, remained focused on his duties, continuing to learn and adapt, quietly proving that his abilities were more than luck, they were innate. Disciplined and extraordinary, Vira watched him from her balcony. The city below bathed in twilight. She knew that the challenges of leadership were far from over. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and unknowns. Yet for the first time, she felt a new confidence. With Jonathan by her side, the Empire had not only a wise advisor but a protector, a strategist, and perhaps even a key to a future that none could have predicted. And deep in her mind, Vira wondered if this was only the beginning. What other strengths lay hidden within the human she had married? The palace of Zarnthia had returned to its usual rhythm after the failed coup. Yet the air was charged with tension. Whispers of Jonathan Hale's abilities circulated quietly among the courtiers, some in awe, some in disbelief. Even the Empress, Vira, found herself reflecting on the human's remarkable skills. Each day with him revealed new layers of intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness, but neither Vira nor Jonathan had yet faced the ultimate test, a challenge that would push them both to their limits and reveal the full extent of the humans' strength. The warning came from the stars themselves. Scouts reported the approach of a fleet from the neighboring system of Drakthar, a militaristic civilization long jealous of Zaranthian influence. Their ships were armed with weapons designed to pierce the palace's shields, and their intentions were unmistakable: conquest. Vira convened the council immediately. "The Drakthar fleet approaches," she announced. "We must act to protect the Empire. But our forces alone may not be enough." A murmur ran through the room. Even the most experienced commanders looked uneasy. Zaranthian defenses were strong, but the Drakthar fleet was fast, ruthless, and well-trained. Conventional tactics might delay them, but could not guarantee victory. Jonathan stood quietly, listening to the council's discussions. When it was his turn to speak, he did so with calm authority. "We can defend the palace and city," he said, "but we must combine strategy with ingenuity. I have ideas to neutralize their fleet before they reach our gates. I will need access to our tactical systems and coordination with the fleet commanders." Vira's violet eyes widened slightly. She had seen his tactical thinking in small-scale palace incidents, but now he spoke of interstellar strategy against a formidable military. "You are certain?" she asked. Jonathan nodded. "Yes, the key is to anticipate their moves, divide their forces, and use their assumptions against them. They will underestimate human unpredictability, and we will use that to our advantage." Vira hesitated for only a moment. She trusted Jonathan implicitly, yet even she could not foresee the full consequences of the coming battle. "Then do it," she commanded. "The Empire depends on your judgment." As night fell, the fleet of Drakthar ships emerged from hyperspace, glowing red against the black void. Zaranthian defenses activated, energy shields forming a protective dome over the palace and city. But Jonathan had already predicted the enemy's approach. He issued precise instructions. Certain gates would open to lure the fleet into traps. Defensive drones would be positioned in unexpected areas, and holographic decoys would simulate fleet movements. Vira watched him work, issuing orders and adjusting tactics with extraordinary calm. He did not panic when unexpected enemy maneuvers occurred. Instead, he adapted instantly, reconfiguring the defenses and coordinating attacks. Guards and commanders alike followed his lead, inspired by the humans' clarity and confidence. The Drakthar fleet attacked, striking with both speed and power. Energy blasts tore through the outer defenses, but Jonathan had anticipated each strike. His traps activated, disabling several enemy ships without loss of life among the Zaranthian forces. Holographic illusions caused confusion, leading the enemy into positions where they could be neutralized efficiently. Vira's heart raced as she observed the battle from the palace balcony. Each moment revealed more of Jonathan's extraordinary skill. It was not just his intellect or strategy, it was his ability to act under pressure, to move with precision and confidence, to inspire others to perform beyond their limits. At one point, a Drakthar boarding vessel breached the city's perimeter. Jonathan did not hesitate. He donned light combat armor and moved to intercept the intruders. The Zaranthians gasped. Humans were not trained in their ways of combat, and the palace's guards feared that a single human could not face multiple Drakthar soldiers. Jonathan moved with remarkable speed, disarming attackers with a combination of agility and tactical foresight. Every motion was purposeful, every decision calculated. He anticipated the soldiers' movements before they acted, using their own momentum against them. Within moments, the boarding party was subdued. The Zaranthian guards, initially skeptical, now watched in stunned admiration. Vira could hardly believe her eyes. "He is extraordinary," she whispered to herself. "Not only in mind, but in action. This is beyond anything I imagined." The battle continued, escalating as the Drakthar fleet realized their tactics were failing. Jonathan adapted again, predicting fleet maneuvers and directing defensive strikes that minimized casualties. His strategy was not about brute force, it was about efficiency, foresight, and leveraging every advantage. Ships moved as if guided by a single mind, defenders acting in harmony, inspired by the calm certainty of a human leading them. Even the most experienced Zaranthian commanders were impressed. They had faced countless threats in their lifetimes, yet they had never seen such skill and coordination, such clarity in decision-making under extreme pressure. Jonathan's presence was transforming the battle, turning what could have been disaster into an orchestrated defense that the enemy could not anticipate. At the climax of the confrontation, a massive Drakthar dreadnought broke through the outer shields and targeted the palace directly. The city's defenses were straining, energy grids at maximum output. Jonathan acted without hesitation. He analyzed the dreadnought's trajectory, calculating vectors and energy dispersions. Then, using a combination of Zaranthian energy channels and tactical deception, he redirected the ship into a collision course with its own fleet, neutralizing the greatest threat in one swift maneuver. Vira's eyes widened. She had seen courage before, but this was genius in motion. The human she had married had saved her empire, not through luck, not through force, but through intellect, strategy, and calm determination. When the battle ended, the Drakthar fleet retreated. The palace and city remained intact. Zaranthian citizens cheered, celebrating their unexpected victory. Guards and officials approached Jonathan with awe and gratitude, some barely able to believe what had occurred. Vira herself moved toward him, her expression a mixture of relief, pride, and astonishment. "Jonathan," she said softly, "I had begun to see your intelligence, your judgment, but I did not realize the full extent of your strength. You have done what none of us thought possible." Jonathan, exhausted but composed, shook his head. "I only acted as I believed necessary. Humans are often underestimated. We adapt, we learn, we act when the moment requires it. That is all." Vira stepped closer, studying him carefully. "You are more than I imagined. You are not merely clever, you are decisive, brave, and capable of inspiring those around you. You are extraordinary." Jonathan's eyes met hers, calm and unwavering. "I only wish to serve, Vira, to protect what we have built together, to show that humans can rise to challenges, even ones that seem impossible." In that moment, the Empress realized that the human she had married was no ordinary being. His mind, his spirit, and his abilities were far beyond what any Zaranthian had anticipated. He had not just defended the palace. He had transformed it, showing the Empire what humans were truly capable of. The days that followed were filled with celebration and reflection. The threat of the Drakthar fleet had passed, but the impact of Jonathan's actions remained. The Empress called a council meeting, not to discuss defense strategies, but to acknowledge his contributions and to emphasize the potential of humans in the Empire's future. "You have witnessed it yourselves," Vira addressed the council. "This human is more than an ally. He has shown us the strength, intelligence, and courage that our species has long underestimated. We must recognize not only his achievements, but the potential of his people." The council members, many still skeptical, nodded in agreement. Even the most conservative voices could not deny the evidence before them. Jonathan's actions had saved the Empire, and the lesson was clear: humans were capable of greatness, even among the stars. That evening, Vira found Jonathan in the floating gardens, watching the alien plants glow softly in the twilight. She approached quietly, her mind still racing with the events of the past days. "You have changed everything," she said. "Not just the outcome of the battle, but my perception of humanity. I underestimated you, and I underestimated your people. Now I see. Perhaps I never truly understood until now." Jonathan looked at her, eyes calm. Yet there was a quiet pride there. "I did what was necessary. Humans are capable of much, and I only hope that this is the beginning of a better understanding between our species." Vira smiled, a rare warmth in her expression. "It is more than that. You have revealed what humans can truly achieve. I am in awe." And as they stood together, watching the stars above Zaranthia, Vira realized that the human she had married was not just her consort or an ambassador. He was a force of nature, a being whose true strength had finally been revealed. The galaxy would never look the same again. The victory over the Drakthar fleet had changed everything. The city of Zaranthia shimmered with renewed energy, citizens moving through floating streets and crystal bridges with pride and awe. The palace itself seemed to glow brighter, reflecting the triumph of its defenders and the remarkable human who had guided them, Vira. Empress of the Zaranthian Empire, walked through the halls with Jonathan Hale at her side. Her violet eyes, usually sharp and commanding, now held a mixture of admiration and wonder. She had watched him face dangers, strategize under pressure, and inspire loyalty and courage among the Zaranthians. What had once seemed like a ceremonial union had become something far more profound. A partnership built on trust, respect, and mutual strength. The palace council gathered in the grand chamber, its crystalline walls reflecting the twin suns of Zaranthia. This time, there was no tension or skepticism. The members, even those who had doubted Jonathan's abilities before, now regarded him with respect, some even with quiet awe. Vira addressed them first. The recent events have demonstrated something that should never be ignored, she began, her voice clear and commanding. Human beings are capable of remarkable achievements. They can think, act, and adapt in ways that rival our own. Jonathan Hale has shown us the potential of his people and of humanity itself. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Some members exchanged glances, as if realizing that centuries of pride and tradition had blinded them to possibilities. Beyond their understanding, Jonathan stepped forward, bowing respectfully. I acted not for praise, he said. I acted because it was necessary to protect the Empire and the lives within it. Humans are capable of much, yes, but what matters is cooperation, understanding, and learning from one another. Together, we are stronger than alone. Vira studied him closely. His words were calm, yet carried a conviction that resonated deeply. He did not seek power or glory. He sought collaboration and unity. It was a philosophy that challenged centuries of Zaranthian tradition. Yet it was undeniably compelling. The council deliberated, but the outcome was inevitable. The Zaranthian Empire, long proud of its superiority, had been confronted with undeniable proof of human capability. Proposals were made to integrate humans more fully into administrative and strategic roles, to establish interstellar training programs, and to foster a stronger alliance between Zaranthia and Earth outside the palace. The city buzzed with excitement. Citizens discussed the events of the past weeks, sharing stories of how a human had led their defenses and inspired confidence among the troops. Markets, schools, and public spaces became hubs of curiosity and admiration for the newcomers from Earth. Even children learned of Jonathan's deeds. Dreaming of one day achieving greatness themselves, Vira and Jonathan continued their daily routines. But each task now carried greater significance. They walked the palace gardens together, observing the glow of alien plants, or reviewed reports from distant provinces, planning improvements with care and foresight. The Empress found herself seeking his counsel not only for human matters, but also for challenges within her own empire. One morning, as they examined trade routes to a distant colony, Vira spoke quietly. I admit, Jonathan, I never imagined that humans could achieve so much. I have always valued intelligence and skill, but your actions have shown me a level of capability I did not know existed. Jonathan looked at her, calm and measured. Humans are often underestimated, Vira. We adapt, we learn, and we act when circumstances demand it. You have seen what is possible when we are given opportunity. Vira smiled softly. And now I wonder what more could humans achieve if we work together across the Empire. And beyond? Jonathan's gaze followed hers, toward the stars visible through the palace's transparent ceiling. The galaxy is vast, he said, and there is much to learn. But together, we can explore, protect, and build something greater than either of our peoples could alone. The idea resonated deeply with the Empress. For centuries, Zaranthia had expanded and conquered with confidence, relying on its own might. Now, with humans as partners, a new era seemed possible, one built not just on power, but on understanding, collaboration, and shared vision. In the weeks that followed, the integration of humans into the Empire began in earnest. Skilled humans were assigned to administrative roles, their insights proving invaluable in areas ranging from logistics to diplomacy. Joint training programs allowed Zaranthians to learn human problem-solving techniques, while humans adapted to the alien systems of the Empire. The result was a harmonious exchange of knowledge, fostering innovation and efficiency across the star system. The military also benefited from the collaboration. Humans introduced unconventional strategies and tactics, while Zaranthians provided advanced technology and combat training. Together, they devised plans that were both creative and effective, further strengthening the Empire's defenses. Jonathan worked tirelessly alongside Vira, guiding the efforts with humility and clarity, ensuring that every action prioritized both justice and efficiency. One evening, Vira walked to the balcony overlooking the city with Jonathan. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky illuminated by the soft glow of distant stars. Citizens below moved through the floating streets, their faces lit with excitement and hope. "The Empire has changed," Vira said softly, "not because of victory alone, but because of what you have shown us. Humans have earned a place here, not as guests, but as partners, as equals." Jonathan watched the city below, then turned to her. "We have only begun," he said. "There is much more to accomplish. Challenges will come, and we will face them together. But this is the start of something greater." Vira nodded, feeling a sense of calm and certainty she had not experienced before. The human by her side had transformed her understanding of strength, leadership, and unity. He had revealed what she had once doubted: the extraordinary potential of humans. News of the events and reforms spread quickly across Zaranthia and to nearby star systems. Other civilizations took notice, some with curiosity, others with admiration. Humanity, once underestimated and dismissed, began to earn recognition not for force or conquest, but for intelligence, adaptability, and courage. The bond between Vira and Jonathan grew stronger, built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Their union, initially seen as a political arrangement, became a model of interstellar partnership, showing that strength came not only from power or heritage, but from character, courage, and the willingness to act for the greater good. As months passed, Zaranthia entered a new era of prosperity and cooperation. Trade flourished, innovations emerged from collaborative research, and the Empire's reputation as a fair and capable power grew across the galaxy. Humans, guided by their own ingenuity and now recognized by the Empire, contributed to the expansion of knowledge, diplomacy, and defense. Vira often reflected on the human who had changed her empire. Jonathan Hale had revealed that true strength was not only in skill or intellect, but in the courage to act, the ability to adapt, and the commitment to protect and inspire others. One afternoon, as they walked through the floating gardens, Vira stopped beside him, watching the alien plants glow softly in the twilight. "You have done more than I imagined possible," she said. "You have changed not only my perspective, but the future of the Empire." Jonathan smiled faintly. "I only did what was necessary. Humans have always had potential. It only takes opportunity to reveal it." Vira placed a hand on his arm, a rare gesture of affection and respect. "Then let us continue to shape that future together, not just for the Empire, but for humanity, and for all those who wish to see a galaxy united in understanding and strength." Jonathan nodded. "Together, we can achieve more than either of our peoples could alone. This is only the beginning." And so, the Empire of Zaranthia and the humans of Earth entered a new era. No longer separate, no longer bound by misunderstanding or doubt. They worked side by side to explore the stars, to protect the innocent, and to demonstrate that true strength comes not from domination, but from unity, courage, and wisdom. The galaxy watched, intrigued, and inspired. And at the heart of this new era stood Vira, the Empress, and Jonathan Hale, the human who had revealed a potential so extraordinary that it would shape the future of countless worlds. Their partnership, forged in trust and tested in battle, had proven a single truth: when humans rise to meet challenges, their strength can change empires and even the stars themselves. The Empress smiled as she looked at Jonathan, her heart and mind full of confidence and awe. Together, They had not only survived, but had transformed the galaxy, showing that the greatest power was not in the weapon, the title, or the lineage, but in courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. And as the twin suns of Zaranthia set over the city, a new day for the Empire and humanity was only beginning.